Social entrepreneurship is one of those words that gets used in a lot of different ways. So some people think it means business that's making money but also has a social good. Other people think it means a nonprofit or an NGO where the focus is impact. What I care most about, and I think what's most important around this concept of social entrepreneurship, it is taking the vision of entrepreneurship, right, which is risk-taking, building new things, trying new things, and applying it to social problems. So whether that is a for-profit eco-bike tour in rural Colombia, or it is a new way of helping young men who leave prison to get reconnected to their communities. The business model itself matters much less than these three important things. First is impact, that it's creating change, that's having a benefit on the community with a particular focus on those with the least amount of power. The second is that it's doing something in a new way. It's taking risks, it's trying things out, it is creating new models of being in the world. And the third thing, in my mind, one of the most important things, is that it is recentering those who are often seen as clients, as receivers of things, as beneficiaries, as drivers of their own transformation. So for those who want to get started on their journeys for changing the world, I think the most important thing is to figure out what is the problem that you want to solve, and then making sure that it is, in fact, a problem. So in my class, we talk about the problem tree, right, where you figure out what is the injustice you want to solve, education equity, access to clean drinking water. But then the cool thing you do is you look at the branches. So how does the fact that we don't have clean drinking water affect a community? Right, so girls have to spend hours traveling to get clean drinking water, so they're not in school. Or there's waterborne diseases, right? So all the effects. And then you look at the roots. What's driving the lack of clean drinking water? Maybe it has to do with environmental issues. Maybe it's government policy. Maybe it's rivalries between different groups of people that are fighting over access to water, right? So what you do is you try to understand what's causing that. And then you look, okay, what sits beneath that? And what sits beneath that? Those roots, the roots of the problem, the causes, are what then invite you to figure out what is the actual problem that you want to solve. So you may care about clean drinking water because it affects girls' abilities to be in school, but the cause might be government policy. And so that's where you want to focus your change-making work. So when you're a change maker, you're ultimately trying to solve a problem. Right? And the important thing to solve a problem is you have to understand the system that the problem sits within. What are the things that make the problem worse, and what are the things that could help create a solution? So if we think about education as an example, and let's say you're really passionate about helping young people be better readers, right? That the reading scores in your community are really bad. And so the problem that you want to fix is that kids aren't learning how to read. Okay, what are the things that are going to make that problem get better? Right? It might be teacher training, or it might be access to good books, or it might be something about students' access to resources. So what are those things that are going to accelerate a solution? And then what are the things that are standing in the way? It might be adults' resistance to change, or outdated curricula, or books that are mandated that students don't get to choose themselves. What's interesting when you look at accelerators and blockers is they're often the same thing. The thing that's going to help a problem get better is often also the thing that will get in the way of your change-making work. So one of the things I'm most passionate about in the field of change-making is that our work has a justice lens. It's not enough just to help more young people in the world read, for example, but are you paying attention to those students who aren't getting resources anywhere else? So for me, the justice lens is paying attention to two very important things. One is it is directly engaging with those who are closest to the problem. We often think about expertise as sitting with people like me who run organizations or who get PhDs, and we completely ignore the power of lived experience, right? There's no better education around poverty than being poor. Right? There's no better education about not being able to read than talking to an 8-year-old who doesn't know how to read. right? But because it's an individual's experience, we tend to discount it as opposed to things that we can gain through research. So how do we put ourselves close to that wisdom? How do we put ourselves in relationship with those who have answers because they are closest to the problem? And then the second thing is, how do we take risks? How do we move ourselves outside of our comfort zone? At Peace First, we created a prize, like a Nobel Peace Prize for young people, to recognize the incredible work that young people are doing all over the world to make the world a better, stronger, safer, more just place. And I could give those out to really cool young people who are raising $1 million for orphans in Somalia or feeding 1 million hungry kids, which is great. But at the end of the day, if your dad's a billionaire and he gives you $5 million for your project, like, you didn't have to risk anything to do that work, right? You didn't have to get close to the problem. And so when we talk about a justice lens, it's about building that proximity. It's about building those set of relationships. There's a group of Aboriginal activists who have this passage, I think in the 70s, it said, if you're coming to help me, then you're wasting your time. But if you're coming because your liberation is bound up in mine, then let us work together. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about a justice lens to change making. It's that proximity, it's that partnership, it's that risk, it's that compassion. So for those out there who want to get started in being a change maker, and it's overwhelming, right? You look at all the problems, whether that's climate, poverty, inequality, we just throw up our hands because you don't know where to get started. But there's some great resources out there. So the organization I run, Peace First, peacefirst.org, if you're 13 to 25, we want to help you get started in your journey. So we'll provide you with digital design tools, funding, mentorship, whatever you need to get started, we'll help you do that. Another organization that's near and dear to my heart is Echoing Green, ECHOING, then the color green.org. They're a global network of social entrepreneurs who also provide funding, networks, and support. Ashoka is another great organization that is helping support social entrepreneurs all over the world. But you don't have to look that far. You know, think about your neighborhood, think about your community. Maybe it's a faith-based group. Maybe it's a community center. Maybe it's a mentor, right? There are all sorts of change makers out there, and I can guarantee you that there's one in your community, maybe one in your home, maybe yourself, right? We often think about change makers as being these superheroes, these sort of unique figures, right? The Nelson Mandelas of the world, the Gandhis, the Dr. Kings. Yes, and the most powerful change makers, the one who inspire me every day, are 3 13-year-old girls in New York City who go into their classroom every day and find that one kid that no one is sitting with, and they go and sit with that kid, right? Or Amin in Palestine, 18 years old, who's built a digital learning system for kids in the West Bank to learn science, right? Those are the inspiring things, much more for me than the great superheroes that you read about in the paper.